I like ska. That's fun. Super Don, that was great. By the way, there's some some special. Oh, Lisa Rooney's here. Hey, Lisa. I don't even. Were you jamming
Hello.
to some ska? That was an interesting genre choice, huh?
Hey, took me back to, my high school days
Oh
with
yeah,
the
you were
heaviness.
into that.
Yeah,
Ah, it's
yeah.
so cool. Now you are in a musical setting. Your daughter has graduated. She's in the music biz. She's production and engineering,
Yep.
all that stuff. I see music. You're not going to play for us today, are you?
I didn't get that. I don't know where she got that gene, but it did not come from me. But yes, I am actually in Nashville. I'm hanging out with her this month, helping her get kind of settled. We're having an amazing time. I'm so lucky that my 21-year-old daughter, wants me to just hang out with her for a little bit. But yes,
Oh
this
my
is her
gosh.
studio, and
I'm going to send my daughter there. She's almost 20 and maybe learn a little bit from her a year ahead of her. But I'm fascinated by that whole journey and our kids of a similar generation now. It's
yeah.
exciting to see what they're growing into.
Yeah, I'll give a plug for her aunt. I think she got her musical abilities from her aunt and her grandmother on my husband's side. They're both, you know, uh, beautiful singers. And yeah, she just came home one day in high school and was like, "I want to study music in college." And
Nice.
she's got two parents who are firstborns, and they're business people. And so we were like, "Okay."
Yeah, but at least one of her parents, aka you, Lisa Rooney, has resonant frequency all over and in her because she's a homeopath,
Yeah,
and that is music on a deep level. You know what I'm saying? We're
yeah,
talking about vibration, frequency, resonance, all of these things that you learn about in music, but also in healing. And and I've used music for healing too, sound healing. In fact, you can choose genres of music that you want to listen to uplift you at times when you're depressed or if you want to feel down, you can. There's all kinds of ways music can
totally.
impact our, let's say, essential, vital force.
Right, right, and I love a good sound healing, for sure, and when Paige sings, she has such a beautiful voice. It's amazing how she can calm a room with her. She's got kind of a singer-songwriter vibe, so
Mhm.
there's a lot there for sure, and then
Nice.
homeopathically speaking, she went away to college with her homeopathic kit. She
Yeah.
still uses it. She's got it up in her cabinet, and I just love that. I love that for her because she's growing up in her 20s in a way that I did not grow up because I,
Right.
like you, was sick.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these kids that have been raised homeopathically, holistically, they're not going to be easily fooled by the allopathic, mindset or propaganda or even mind control, which we know it is about that through fear. So that's great. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and I know you wanted to bring into the mix, I've talked about Aurum Metallicum gold. I lecture on the noble metals as metallic elements, even in diet, nutrition,
Mhm.
but also as homeopathic remedies, cuprum as copper, and of course argentum as silver, and aurum as gold. I had a nice discussion on the noble metals with Mike Adams recently, and I
Yeah.
think we need to let's go more into the aurum metallicum, which is profound as a tool against cancer, autoimmune diseases, but even as I talk about enlightenment, IQ, a lot of emotional states of
Mhm.
being, and before we get into that discussion of PMS and what to do about it, let's hit
Right.
aurum.
Right. So, we decided to talk about Orem today because the last month we were talking about SSRIs and those being kind of overprescribed, especially to our young children. And so, oftentimes SSRIs are well, they're being prescribed for a lot of different things right now, but generally we think of depression. And when I think of Aurum Metallicum, this is really one of the great remedies that we have available to us for depressive states. So the key here with Aurum is, think about our whole economic system is based on gold, right? So it's all about what we value in life, what's important to us. And when something valuable in our life has been taken away, and it puts us into a depression, then that's when something like a remedy like Aurum can come into play. So, I kind of think about it like, okay, so for our longevity, one of the most important things that we need to have is we need to have something to look forward to each day, right? We if we don't have something to wake up for, if we don't have that positive outlook, if we have kind of this hopelessness. If the things that we value, the things that we love in life, we're not able to access, or they've been taken away from us, then we can slip into a depression. And when that depression goes deep, that's when Aurum is indicated. So it's typically for people who have a very exaggerated sense of duty, combined with feelings of like guilt and anxiety about their perceived failings, or there's a, they've lost what they value. So it could be a job, it could be a house, it could be a marriage, it could be a piece of property. It's all about losing the things that they really, really value. And that state descends into kind of a severe depression. So when I think of Aurum, the depression with Aurum, it's heavy.
Mhm.
It's like that black cloud that's kind of weighing over you. There is hopelessness. There may be a sense of forsakenness. There's emptiness. There could be some suicidal depression or suicidal ideation. And, I want to say, if anyone is in that state, make sure that you are either calling 911 if you need to, or you're getting to your local mental health, or you're working with your physician, for
Mhm.
sure. But, you know, any kind of suicidal ideation is a big call for Aurum Metallicum.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
I work with, colloidal minerals too, and I talk about a
Mhm.
colloidal state of gold, the hydrosol technology. They're doing R&D. I can't wait. I've already put it to the test a little bit myself, my family, and it's pretty profound. It's coming in at about a 5x, which is equivalent to about 10 ppm in
Yeah.
actual parts. But there is a risk, as you point out, with the provings of a remedy. If you
Mhm.
take too much gold in a material sense, it can induce some of these symptoms, which is indicative as to why it's indicated in its homeopathic form. So if you are already out there taking a colloidal gold product of high concentration, be aware of some of the things that Lisa is saying. If that pops up, instead of alleviating these things they're manifesting, you definitely want to back off of that and come in and utilize the homeopathic form, the Aurum Metallicum.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I thought I had read. I was trying to look this up before we got on earlier today, because I thought I had read that they were injecting gold into people who had like arthritis issues. And then what they started to see was depression that was coming out of it. And that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of a key that we can utilize Aurum as a treatment for depression. Have you read that?
Yes, yeah, I've seen evidence of that because we see that the allopathic world does adopt some of these concepts by taking forms of gold
Mhm.
and using them as treatment, like in arthritis and autoimmunity, and get benefits. But when these things, as they call it, side effects creep up, like, wait, this is
Right.
kind of strange. We're seeing some depression happen here. How does that manifest? Well, the homeopaths were already on that. We
Right.
we we knew that. They didn't know, and then they have to go back and reinvent the wheel. In other words, discover it anew because they're refusing to read the stuff that, Hahnemann brought about initially, all the various versions of the organon. Where we learn about this stuff. So, Aurum Met, again, brilliant remedy. If anybody is feeling that level of depression here, we're not saying we're trying to replace a doctor, telling you to use or don't use SSRIs. You know our feelings about that, but this is about your journey. And
Mhm.
we want to support the option that many of you have to say, hey, how do I break free of the chemical treatment suppression of all of these feelings that are not evidence of a lack of those toxic SSRI or brain altering chemistry type drugs?
Right, right. And, I want to say that that fear of proving can oftentimes be what I call an obstacle to cure.
Yes, yes, yes.
It can prevent people from actually taking a remedy that can be beneficial from them, because they're afraid, like, oh my gosh, if I take Aurum, is it going to make me feel suicidal? And that's not how homeopathic
No.
remedies work. They don't create pathology. When we have a proving of a remedy, that's really just our body saying, hey, I'm good, like I don't need this anymore. And so it's just how our body kind of communicates, to us when we're using a remedy, and then we start to kind of manifest some of those symptoms. So
Yeah,
there's no new there's no new pathology that's being created in that.
yes, the language of the body, the language of the universe, the language of God comes through symptoms of creation. That is, our bodies are of nature, although there are arrogant medical men that would like to convert us into machines. That's the transhumanism that concerns me greatly. And I
Yeah.
think Aurum enlightenment, gold enlightenment, that we might be able to see beyond it rather than trying to become some synthetic version of, an ego driven desire to be a god, right? And that's where the arrogance of man, often medical, gets in the way here. And so we're trying
Sure.
to rebalance the universe, if you will, the
Yeah.
force that's playing out right now, the imbalance toward allopathic medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the enlightenment. One of the things I love about gold is just, for your audience, I want you to think about, like, Aurum can help bring the light back in. That's what it can do. So when you're in that depressed state, it can help bring the light back in. So there's been 2 times in my life where Aurum, one time I used it, one time I didn't know about it.
Hmm.
Um, I hit that really deep depression after my mom had passed away. And I was in my mid 20s. And, this was right at the beginning of my health journey. I was her loss was the thing that tipped me over the edge in terms of chronic fatigue syndrome and chronic candida infections, and really sunk me into a lot of the health problems. And that was, at that time I didn't know anything. And so I utilized some SSRIs during that time to try to overcome that depression. But it was really deep. I had
Wow.
so much fatigue. It really felt like I had this cloud just like right over me the whole time. Like every time I would look out, I would see through like this dark cloud. So it was a very, very heavy.
Hmm.
And later when I learned about Aurum, I recognized, wow, that was the depression that I had.
Yeah.
The other time that this remedy has come useful to me has been with seasonal affective disorder. So this is one of the great remedies for seasonal affective disorder. And I lived up north for many, many, many years. And there's, a period of what felt like forever, but it was maybe 4 or 5 months where, the skies were overcast, they were gray, low kind of barometric pressure.
Hmm.
And all those winters, I would struggle to get through. And a few years before I left the North, I learned about Aurum Metallicum. And I started using that along with higher doses of vitamin D and really focusing again on my gut health. I feel like we always circle back around to the gut health.
Hmm.
And what it helped me do, it didn't take away the seasonal affective, but it helped me get through.
Yeah.
It lifted that fatigue, that heaviness, so that I could get through the winters without, feeling that sense of just despair and hopelessness that I had felt.
Yeah. Well, once again, when you talk about gut brain as well, we recognize the microbiome and its role. We're more microbe than man. Of course, that usually upsets those who are arrogant, to say you're just a bunch of bugs, or you rely on bugs for your very life. Why do you try to kill them all the time? But what have I done to help facilitate the recovery of the gut? Ironically, it's the other two noble metals, silver and now copper, that we have in the hydrosol form that we can utilize with aloe to heal the tissue, the lining, because we see a lot
Yes.
about the inflammatory response with really silver, gold, and copper. It's fascinating how these noble metals play a role there, and proper communication as opposed to inflamed communication, which is like when we're all yelling and screaming at each other and not listening to anything. And
Right.
it's fascinating how these things will open us up. Now, I imagine as we get into our discussion of the female cycle, and particularly the worst of PMS, the pain, the cramping, the discomfort, there can be elements of depression associated with
Mhm.
every month suffering this way in the female body. And there
Mhm.
are other remedies when we talk about a ditch and switch concept, which you brought to us, which I love, as far as the reaching for an allopathic pharmaceutical to reduce the suffering, which I recognize there's a place for that, but maybe we can provide an opportunity to say, hey, try this, or this. Maybe you won't even need that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I want to say with respect to depression, because people come to me through they usually find their way to me through what's going on in their mind, their anxiety, their overwhelm, their stress, depression, grief, emotional trauma. Oftentimes I have clients that are on allopathic medicines, oftentimes SSRIs or other, anti-anxieties or, whatever it is. So I don't recommend people just drop, like once we're talking about these as options, don't just drop your SSRIs. You really need to taper those down, and you need to do it along with your your physician. But what's great about homeopathy is we can use that alongside of allopathic. And as homeopathy helps to rebalance the system, the need for those allopathic drugs can come down. And so it has to be done carefully, because we don't want anybody to, go into a deep depression or into any kind of an emergency situation. But don't think that you can't use homeopathy if you're on SSRIs and you have to
Yeah.
get off your SSRIs in order to use homeopathy. They can work alongside of each other.
I think that's a key point that unlike drugs interacting with drugs, homeopathy is not going to stop a drug that is very forceful and violent in what it does for the body. It forces something or stops something.
Mhm.
Whereas we're working with vital force or innate intelligence or, the vitality of the body. It knows what to do. What happens is allopathic medicine could be the block, if you will, right? We talk about obstacle to cure. It doesn't mean you can't use a remedy while you're on a drug, but I would say it might not have the impact because of the blockage of the drug forcefully and violently stopping vital force from doing what it knows to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is why I recommend that you work with a homeopath, somebody who knows, because, in my practice I'm also doing some clearing of those drugs at the same time that we're building the body up. So I'm utilizing possibly even that particular drug back in potency to help to, the body
Clear it.
to,
Yeah.
handle it. So there's a definitely a fine art when it comes to, the allopathic medicines and the homeopathic, and, finding that balance and helping the body clear. So I do recommend people work with a homeopath when they're in that scenario, especially when it comes to things like depression.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So if we go to the cycle, I've often talked of the female cycle when I learned of all the things that I learned about this life that I'm completely ignorant of it growing up allopathically and pharmaceutically. That historically the female cycle, which is designed to what? Prepare the uterus to accept a fertilized egg to become implanted
Mhm.
in pregnancy, child, all of that. And if it doesn't happen in a month, there is the menstrual cycle continues to say, all right, now we're that lining that was prepped. We got to now allow it to slough off and be expulsed. But it wasn't historically commonplace, although it did exist, but it wasn't common that women would be in abject pain, misery, terror, and bleeding, profuse bleeding for extended points of time, like fresh arterial blood, like you got a cut. I think there's a misunderstanding, or people just don't even look into what is really supposed to be happening during the menstrual cycle. So much aberrant endocrine interference from an allopathic, whether it be birth control or whether it be inadvertent exposure to plasticizers, estrogens. So it's corrupted the female menstrual cycle to the point where it's become normal to have pain and bloating and bleeding and excess and lasting not 2 or 3 days but a week or more, a breakthrough bleeding during ovulation. I'm just laying it out here as a dude that you're like, don't stop already, let Lisa talk. So Lisa, take help me out here.
You are right on point. It's very complex. It's very troubling what has happened to the female cycles, and it is not a single thing. It's multiple assaults on the female cycle, on the female system, and I think we have lost the understanding, both as women and men, and as a society, of what the cycle brings, the power of the cycle, how women are supposed to flow. We have typically a 24 to 30-day cycle, whereas men have kind of a 24-hour cycle. And so the things that we can accomplish and the way in which we flow through our lives is very different than the way men do. It's not better or worse, it's just different. And we were
Mhm.
designed for different purposes in this world. And so what we've had is generations and generations of um, institutions telling women that they don't have to deal with this, that the gift that God gave them and the ability to produce life, and what comes along with that is a burden, and we need to suppress it, and we shouldn't have it, and all of these other things. And so now we have about 3 generations of women who, have been on the birth control pill, who have taken, all of the over the counter medicines, even, pharmaceuticals have been prescribed for PMS and for, severe PMDD. And so we have all of this. We have these girls that are being born to, they're a second or third generation woman of a mom and a grandmother that was on the birth control pill, and that is impacting the way in which we cycle. And so, and then we have all the messaging about how it's a burden, and we're just creating I mean, it's a real storm that we are creating. And it's unfortunate for our girls because they're growing up thinking that this is a burden, and it's really a gift. And so that's kind of a, that's sort of a sidebar conversation when I can get really esoteric and,
Well, it's an
talk
important
about all
one.
of
It's an important one to have, and like I said, as best as I can as a guy, I can acknowledge that, and I've helped many women with this issue. Yet, I don't pretend to know other than having been married for 30 some odd years now, and I have a daughter who's becoming an adult here, and all of that to recognize that what has become normal in female menstrual cycles is not necessarily healthy. And
Yes,
that's an uncomfortable place to go, "Wait a second, you mean this thing that I've experienced, the way I've experienced it all my whole life might not be healthy?" We need
right.
to look at that, and that includes the reaching for painkillers. Let's just hit
Mhm.
that element of it in the stitch and switch focus of the homeopathic, discussion. You know, I know there are many remedies for female cycle issues, including pain and discomfort, but many women don't. Raised allopathically, they are taught reach for Midol, take an aspirin, a
Mhm.
nonsteroidal or steroid, whatever it is to get you out of the discomfort. So if you can share some homeopathic insights as to also maybe I don't know of all the allopathic interventions that people are using nowadays. I'm kind of out of that realm.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I want to say is, there are definitely times, like, I don't want to be a purist in this scenario because I recognize that, just like what you were talking about in your opening segment, RFK he has to work through the system. When I was in my early years of raising my children holistically, I started a local chapter of the Holistic Moms Network. And it was really one of the fastest growing chapters in the country. And part of the reason for that was because I took a lot of time with my new members talking about how we just make these small, subtle little changes. And sometimes it was just switching the chips from, the crap that's out there to a more organic version or a cleaner
Right.
version, even just getting a cleaner version and then moving to an organic version, and then we get the chips out and we replace it with, more whole foods. So there's definitely a process. So, if you have a teenager or a young girl, or you yourself are dealing with a lot of cramps, and you've been going to Midol, there's no shame in that. Let's just get you focused on some other options, because there are some really great options out there. So one of the things that I learned about when I was really looking into Midol, some of the ingredients are acetaminophen, some of them have caffeine in them,
Mhm.
naproxen. I didn't realize this, but acetaminophen actually depletes the body of glutathione, which is one of our master antioxidants. And with that, the side effects, or over long term, especially if you do high dose of it and you use it pretty frequently, is liver toxicity. And so then
Mhm.
that pathway is completely jammed up and completely, congested, and it's only going to make things worse. So what I want to remind your listeners is, sometimes we need to use some over the counters because we need to get something done quickly. It's not my go-to, but as you're making this transition, that's perfectly fine. When you are doing over the counter, when you are doing prescription meds, you really want to make sure that you are looking up whatever it is that you are taking and the nutrients that it depletes from the body, because you need to be giving those back into the body just to maintain some level of balance so that you don't get depleted.
Yeah, I've argued that the damage to the liver, whether it was acetaminophen contributed, which often it is, it results in a compensation by the female body to utilize that pathway of elimination or excretion with a sloughing off of the lining of the uterus each month through the vaginal canal and out. It may be arguably the reason why women typically live longer than men. You have one extra a way to get things out of the body that don't belong
Yeah.
there, even when the liver, kidneys, and other things are not 100%. But it creates aberrant inflammatory responses too. We could talk uterine inflammation, fibroid production, etc. But still, we got to deal with the pain, and I don't want women to suffer any more than they have to. So as we go through, that is there another option besides these drugs that they become accustomed to taking every month? Yes, there are, and that's why we're doing this ditch and switch with Lisa Rooney, which is so awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So, Super Don, you want to pull up the slide? Did you get it?
Let's see if Super Don is with us today or if he's zoning out because he doesn't suffer with menstrual difficulties, to my knowledge. The ditch and switch article, or if we get a PDF,
There
is
it
available.
is.
There we are, the imagery. There it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Super D.
Yes, perfect. So,
Go ahead.
there are a lot of options and there are a lot of symptoms. So, we've got irritability, anger, fatigue, sadness, sleep disturbances, cramping, bloating, breast tenderness, headaches, acne flare ups. There can be constipation and diarrhea. There's lots of different symptoms that can exist with PMS. So these are just some options. Again, there's lots of different options. The two remedies right here in front, Sepia and Pulsatilla, I love both of those remedies. They really help to balance out the system. So sepia can be used when there is irritability and there is an aversion, typically an aversion to any kind of physical or mental work, which every woman out there is like, oh yeah, I totally know what that feels like. It helps to calm the mind. And physically, what it addresses is a lot of the bearing down pains in the uterus that are then accompanied by mental irritability. I find that sepia tends to work better in women versus pulsatilla that I tend to use it a little bit more in younger girls and teenagers. So pulsatilla is this is a real high sensitivity mood during PMS. It's like the smallest thing kind of sets you off. And you tend to versus irritability, you tend to be a little bit more weepy. And it's like, I don't know why I'm crying. You're very easily brought to tears. This is also a great remedy for suppressed or delayed menses. So when I have a teenager that I'm working with and her cycles are irregular, there's two things that I look at. I look at the emotional picture of what's going on and differentiate between sepia and pulsatilla. It's oftentimes pulsatilla. And then I also look at whether or not the mother was on birth control. And
Hmm.
if the mother was on birth control, we can clear the body of that birth control. And sometimes that alone will help to regulate the cycle. And then we might need pulsatilla to help, just give the body a little bit of a boost.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now, Mag Phos, that next one, this is a cell salt, and this is for your cramps. One of my teachers used to call it mug Phos. And what she always recommended was if you can, put it in a glass of warm water, and you might need 1 or 2 mugs, and just sip it, a couple
Mhm.
of times a day during that time when you're having those cramps. Now, it's not just for period-related cramps, cycle-related cramps. This is a great one for, Charlie horses, muscle cramps, anything of that nature, shoulders that are really tight. I love this remedy for that. And if you don't have access to something hot, you can still take it dry. They're just pellets. They
Mhm.
dissolve very quickly in your mouth. This was one of the remedies that my daughter always carried with her when she was in high school, and they would pass it around under the table when all the girls were having their cycle. So those are 3 really great options. Now, some combination remedies, because sometimes it's just easier to go to combination remedies. We've talked a lot about that. Um, the Biocomba number 15 from Be Healthy. This is just a combination of cell salts that can help to balance out the system and help regulate the menstrual cycle. And then boron has this great remedy right here, Cycle Ease. It has about 3 different remedies in it. Sepia is one of those remedies, and this also can help provide some relief for PMS. And then the last one there is not a homeopathic remedy, but and not a combination remedy, but it's magnesium. And I feel like magnesium is really, really key for helping with the cramping that takes place not only during the cycle, but just the ability of the body to really kind of relax. And so most of my clients, at some point, I put them on magnesium. I recommend that they take magnesium usually in the evening before they go to bed. And over time, as that nutrient is building the system back up, you will see less cramps, more relaxed state. Oftentimes, women sleep, especially in menopause, they sleep much better when they've got enough magnesium in their system.
Super Don, can you help me with the imagery? Because I wanted to have us on the screen along with the major focus on the remedies. I apologize, trying to see that. Yeah, exactly. All right. So we have the magnesium, which is the actual mineral component. We have
Mhm.
it in homeopathic form that can be used in conjunction. We've often utilized, as you all know, the food research magnesium, 100% whole food, which has a combination of things. So whatever you find that's going to work well with you, this is great insight for that cyclical discomfort at the very least. And I'm so grateful because you put together a few great remedies to consider, single remedies and even combinations. And there are others out there as well. Are
So I
there
want
other? Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to share with you something interesting that I found out just over the last maybe 4 or 5 months. One of my mentors, I was having a conversation with her about C-section babies, and I was really looking at how does that trauma impact a baby down the road. Um, I'm very, very fascinated by birth trauma and how it plays a role in people's health journeys. And one of the things that she shared with me was that she had an OB that was also a homeopath, that was in within one of her networks at one point, and she had this really high rate of C-section. We have a lot of C-section that takes place in our country, and she started supplementing her clients with magnesium just in its gross form,
Hmm.
and over time saw the rate of C-section deliveries go down
Wow.
significantly. And that was a huge aha moment for me about how important magnesium is within the system,
Mhm.
especially for women. And that I like magnesium glycinate. I'm not if you have
No, it's all
a
right. I just wanted to open it up because there
yeah,
are people that are really hardcore on selecting this, not this, and this, and this. And I'm like a whole food guy. There's
yeah,
in nature, it comes in via a variety of mechanisms and methods. But I know that some people have succeeded with this form. So no, it's not at all disputed. It's just to open up the wideness of try it. If that doesn't work, you've got other options. I don't want people to give up so easily. So we have a nice
yes,
comprehensive
yes.
discussion on this. And
And I also think that when you are taking a homeopathic form, so if you're taking magnesium and magphos at the same time, that signaling that magphos gives the body is going to help it uptake
I
the
agree, agree.
magnesium.
Yeah, 100%. I've often found that people weren't succeeding with certain supplements, even if they were the right form. And I would say, let's add in the homeopathic form of that and find that it activates
Yeah,
the pathways in some way, that
absolutely.
communication.
I've
Yeah.
also seen that be successful in vitamin D uptake.
Mhm,
When we've had people who are really struggling to get their vitamin D levels up,
mhm.
we can give them a course of vitamin D in homeopathic forms, certain potencies. There's a process that we follow, and then the body's like, oh, now I know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Oh, and Lisa, I don't know if you've ever heard me talk about the cardio miracle, but that opening up by nourishing the pathways of accessing the stored vitamin D that is plentiful in all these people taking vitamin D and not seemingly
Mhm.
getting benefit, suddenly they're opening it up and activating the stored D because they're nourishing all the pathways with all the variety of minerals and vitamins that are needed from food. So there's so many things that come up to mind when we talk about it. Homeopathy working with that vital force, and also we still need, it's a physical body. We still need nutrients. And if we're not getting them from the right sources and forms, then pathways become corrupted. And this is where people
Mhm.
come to me and like, I'm taking more vitamin D. The doctor says take more, take more. My levels aren't going up. I'm like, Well, we can do homeopathic vitamin D as well, and we can nourish the pathways, bring them back to life, and Cardio Miracle has played a role there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you don't have the resources, in my estimation, if we don't have the resources, we don't have the pathways open, that's where we can see homeopathy start to plateau because it's
Mhm.
telling the body to do something. It's giving it a signal to do something, and the body doesn't have the resources to do it.
Yeah. Now, is there
And so I love
another?
that. I haven't tried the cardio miracle.
Okay.
It's definitely on my list, but I
Well,
haven't tried it yet.
I'm planning to bring a bunch up to. Well, you're not going to be up in Portland, Oregon, well, just north of it. The Patriots United WA event coming up this Friday. It's almost sold out. There's over 300 people attending at this point, and I'll
Wow.
bring some Cardio Miracle for everybody there. So hopefully that'll be
Yeah,
great.
I need to find out what your schedule is and see if I can coordinate with some of the times that you're out because you're out and about all the time.
Well, I know that, yeah, the upcoming events tab at robertscabell.com, best place for me to find out where
Yeah.
I'm going to be, including Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think it's July 12th, 13th. That's the Red Pill Expo. That's going to be a blast. It's always amazing speakers, and we have a lot of great reunions there. Do you have another slide to show today? Oh, there's the upcoming
Nope,
events tab. No?
just those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost to the homeopathic kit as well.
Oh,
I will
sorry,
mention.
that was from last week. Sorry, I forgot to take that one
No
off.
worries. Yeah. Uh, the Semicifuga racemosa or Actia racemosa, one of the most profound remedies impacting female specific cycles as well. It may not be focused solely on some of the things we've discussed in terms of pain and discomfort, but and also for those that are in that childbirthing process or getting ready, colophyllum, homeopathic
Mhm.
colophyllum, the key to soften the cervix and prepare for an easier birth. So maybe you could preclude, if you're going to a doctor or a hospital setting, the C-sections that are often preordained by the doctors who just don't even want to bother with real delivery. That's another issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love both of those remedies. And there are so many, there's so many there you can actually purchase birth kits
Yes.
that have all of these great remedies that are going to be essential, throughout the birthing process and the growing of the baby as
Mhm.
well. That's where I really like the cell salts,
Yes.
especially during the growing of the
Play a
baby.
huge role there. Now, vibrantlife247.com. You guys are
Mhm.
reaching out to Lisa to get a consult. She's still, I asked her before we went on the air. It's like, is it okay to keep telling people to reach out? Yeah, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, but you're getting busy. That's okay. It's okay. She says. So vibrantlife247.com. And you can find out how to sign up for a 20-minute consult to see if you want to go further with any of the coaching programs or if you want to become, homeopathic type client. That's awesome. And I wish there were a million more Lisa Rooney's for the needs that are needing to be met. But we'll start with one, and
Thank you.
see what we can do to help people by these visits here, and also the classes that you're going to be doing. So thank you.
Yeah. So if you reach out and you get on my calendar, go to my website, go to the two things. Go to my website and get on the wait list for my course that is coming out hopefully mid-summer. Second of all, go to the work with me page and then schedule a discovery call and just mention that you heard me on the RSB show so that you can get $100 off whatever, package we determine is best for you. And then also if anybody wants the slides, feel free to email me and I can send you the slide from today.
Nice, thank you. So let's do a homeopathic hit. It's one of those unusual remedies we don't often encounter, but it has a lot of profound properties, including in what we're discussing today. Super Don, so hit it.
Playing all of the homeopathic hits every day, right here on The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Once again, I want to thank our wonderful supporters to make this homeopathic hit possible, including my friends at Better Way Health, betterwayhealth.com. The most amazing immune modulator, beta 1,3-D glucan, the best form you've ever found. And you can get it from betterwayhealth.com. Use RSB to get a discount. In fact, Lisa was on the last Zoom AMA, as so was our friends from Better Way Health, and we connected them. And I hope, because she's on one side of Atlanta, they're on the other, but I love to get good people together as well. Reggie Black and the gang. So Folium PX as well. Of course, Bob Rioran, my good friend, and he's bringing it. He'll be at the Red Pill Expo as always, and bringing the Folium to bind the heavy metals, the ionizing radiation components, and getting them out of our body so the body can heal itself. A beautiful concept. It really works. Also, as I mentioned, Lisa here, and a shout out to our friends at Grip On Tools, the official tool company of the Robert Scott Bell Show. Who knew? Yeah, right tool for the right job. the right remedy for the right job. It's all important, and I'm grateful. So this one's interesting. Try to pronounce this. Unimus? Yeah, unimus. Okay, I'm going to go with it. It's Latin. You're going to yell at me? It's okay. Atroporpyria, remedy indicated for liver congestion, digestive sluggishness, headache, and yes, uterine issues. So this is from the wahoo tree, the bark of the wahoo tree. Wahoo! And this is a remedy that is often indicated for a lot of liver, gallbladder, and bowel issues. Herbalists will use it this way, indicated for use in detoxification, sluggish liver, gallbladder congestion. This is often going to make menstrual issues much worse when we don't have good liver and gallbladder function.
Mhm.
Look, uterine fullness, pelvic heaviness, indicated by the use of this remedy. It's a right-sided remedy, bilious headache, migraine, again, liver, right-sided, support the detox elimination systems. You can use it as a lower potency, a 6X, a 12X, a 12C. If you want to go to a 30C or higher, 200s, please consider consulting with someone like Lisa Rooney so that you match these remedies much better. Or if you use them in lower potency in combination with one another, that's cool too. But I wanted you to know about this remedy. It's very interesting. Anything that supports the liver, as you scroll down, you'll see some other adjunct remedies here that are complements to this, like chelidonium, one of my favorite liver polycrests, the chelidonium point of the liver, helping with unanimous, we call it unanimous. This is a remedy I haven't worked with as much. Podophyllum, if there's a lot of bloating associated with liver congestion. Sepia, we just mentioned that. Uterine symptoms, pelvic dragging or downward, pressure. And baptisia, I like that as well, considering the intestinal focus, liver, gallbladder, meridian, etc. So as we wrap it up, remember, this is not to replace a doctor if you have or want one, or a drug if you're using one. Although you know our feelings about that. My feeling is fundamentally your freedom. And in order to gain our freedom back, we must have freedom of speech. And that's why I'm grateful to Lisa Rooney that she's also helping support us so we can do these daily homeopathic hits in addition to our extended homeopathic hits and ditch and switch every month. And whenever Lisa can join us on our monthly AMAs, it's always a great, great gift when you're there too.
Yeah, when's the next one?
We're Saturday, May 31st, the final day of May. It'll be noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. If you can make it for a little all or any of it, that'd be great.
Oh, I think I'm gonna be on a plane traveling to Paris. I'm celebrating my 25th wedding anniversary.
And I wasn't invited. I don't know what. That's
So
awesome. I'm
I'm
so
gonna have
excited.
to not
Happy
be able to
anniversary.
join that time, but yeah.
Happy anniversary. Well, we'll have a lot of
You.
fun in your absence anyway, and knowing that you'll be celebrating that's great. Makes my heart happy.
Yeah.
So anything else that we want to share before we wrap up this hour? What an amazing extended homeopathic hit and ditch and switch.
Yeah, I'm just always so grateful for this time, to speak with your audience and to spend some time with you. And I just love, I really hope that your audience is enjoying it. I hope that they're getting something out of it and that they're feeling more confident in being able to bring these remedies, into their home and start using them. Yeah,
Oh, for sure. I think so. And I think it's only growing. It's so exciting that we're bringing homeopathy back where it belongs. Little bit at a time, one little small minimal dose at a time. We'll get there.
that's
And
all it is.
Lisa, I'll have to coordinate you with my next trip to Atlanta. I know I got to visit mom and hang out. Last trip was just too condensed, but knowing in advance you're there, as long as you're not on your anniversary trip, whatever, we'll get together when I'm back east as well.
Sounds wonderful.
All right, that's Lisa Rooney here on the Robert Scott Bell Show.